Alright, so, I was planning on starting Vanguard content for a while now, for the last couple of weeks, ever since I've started really testing Standard, now that we've had decks complete enough to start testing. And I was planning on jumping in when we have VBT01 fully revealed, start talking about what all my test results have told me and stuff, see what I can do to help people out. But the thing is, Alfred was revealed last night, and the discourse around Alfred has been baffling, to say the least. And I really feel the need to put my hat in the ring here, because I think most people are just completely wrong about Alfred. But I'm going to avoid my usual vitriol that I'm oh so well known for, and just try and break this down so that I can help people out, help them understand why Alfred is actually a really good card and really a fantastic tool for Royal Paladins, and really helps them become one of the big players of the format. So, we're going to talk about this in 5 categories. First, I'm going to defend Alfred himself, then I'm going to defend Blaster Blade, then I'm going to address the comparisons to Alfred early and the other VRs, and finally I'm going to talk about the Soul Saver Dragon Turbo deck and why that deck is not a good idea. Alright, so let's dive into things. First, Alfred himself. If you are not aware, here's what he does. Alfred is, so he gets plus 10k as long as you have a Blaster Blade on the board, and he has a once per turn act to counterblast 1 and call Blaster Blade from your deck, and it gets plus 5k for turn. So, this is disappointing because it restricts your deck building to Blaster Blade only. And let me be clear about this. Before this reveal, I was not using Blaster Blade in my test Royal Paladin deck. In fact, the deck I was running was pretty close to the Soul Saver Dragon Turbo deck, because that was really the only way to build at that point, because Alfred early is really bad. So, I was not a big fan of Blaster Blade, trust me. But when it has a tool like Alfred, King of Knights Alfred is realistically the most efficient use of your counterblast. What are your other options for use of a counterblast? We've got Marin and Alan, which are plus 3k to themselves, counterblast 1, draw a card. Now, these are good effects, but they're still random draws. And the plus 3k does not typically make a difference in hitting good numbers. So, yeah, like 10 plus 11, that's 21, doesn't matter. 13 plus 11, that does make numbers, but you're less likely to be calling grade 3s in front of them. So you know. They don't really make numbers all that well. Yeah. Akane is counterblast 1 to call a specific booster from your deck, which is a very good. It's a very good card. If you Akane is the only one that's really comparable with Alfred, because Alfred can only get you an attacker and Akane can only get you a booster. But Alfred is still overall more valuable, and it's also repeatable, which is an important note. And then there's Mithril Conjurer, which is Conjurer of Mithril, whatever. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 to call any grade 2 from your deck. Now you're either calling Akane with this, which can be really good value, or you're calling Joron. That was the typical play line. And the Joron comparison, this is the same thing. Alfred calling Blaster Blade is the same thing, because it gives it plus 5k for the turn, then you intercept it away and can repeat it again next turn. Like, that is one of the big things about Alfred's effect. It is repeatable, which gives it a lot of value in matchups where you might have to expend a lot of your hand, like Nova Grapplers and Kagero. Yeah. Okay, what else is there? And then there's Alfred Early, which is, like, really bad because you have to have a Blaster Blade either written or in your hand, and that limits it. And also, like, the other thing is that it only works on ride. So with the reboot, there's this big element of damage choking that's been introduced. This is definitely a thing that existed in Vanguard before, but it's given a new level of prevalence in the reboot because it's so much more effective. And Royal Paladins, as a deck that is really restricted to only being able to do real plays with counterblasts, suffers a lot from this. They can suffer a lot from this. So if you get damage choked and don't have any counterblasts to use when going into your grade 3 turn, you ride Alfred early and you don't do anything with it, and you can never do anything. On the other hand, while it's not ideal that you have to ride King of Knights Alfred in that scenario, you can still, when you get damage later on, you're still able to use its effect and just get the pluses it would get, just delayed. In addition, it can still get its plus 10k effect as long as you have a Blaster Blade in your hand somewhere to call. So that is a big, big plus of Alfred, King of Knights. Now, the breakdown of the effect itself. Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, it would be better if it could call any grade 2. That much is obvious. However, the design intent behind the card is to future-proof it so that it does not... Well, how the design intent reads to me, personally, is that Bushiroad does not want to create a bunch of effects that can recruit any card in your deck of a certain grade or whatever, because they're worried that could lead to problems. That's why Conjurer of Mithril is so high-costed. It's Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and it's a 9k, and it only works when called from hand. That is a steep cost in comparison to things like Akane and Alfred. Now, Alfred is getting a 15k power spread and turning your Blaster Blade into a 15k beater. And it's very important to note that while most of the time you will not be using that retire ability of Blaster Blade, there are matchups where it is very useful, and even situations in the other matchups where you will want to use it because you don't really have anything else to use the counterblast on. You're late in the game, you don't want to delay using your counterblast, so it's just like, I'll use it, clear an interceptor, maybe get the game with this. Yeah. Versus Kagro and Nova's, Alfred is incredibly important. The mass retire of Kagro, plus the pressure of cards like Overlord and Waterfall, can rip your hands and field to shreds. So, a card like Alfred, that no matter what, as long as you're on it, you can always just go Counterblast 1, effectively get a Jordan out of deck, retire something that's potentially a threat. That is good. That is extremely valuable in that matchup. That's just very valuable in that matchup, and it's what's going to allow you to sustain hand and card advantage against Kagro. Versus Novas, you need to kill Burst Risers and Maximum Risers. Those are huge threats, and if they stay on the board, they will wreck your shit. Anything that's on an Excel circle, by the way, is a huge threat and should be cleared. And Blaster Blade being able to clear that, and Alfred being able to guarantee you a Blaster Blade every turn is so valuable for this matchup. I cannot stress enough how good it is. And I know I've seen arguments that, oh, you can just kill Novas, but this argument does not hold water. If you are giving me this argument, you are telling me that you have not really tested with this format, because if you had, you would understand that it is very rare for even a deck with as little draw power as Nova Grapplers or Kagero, because Kagero has just as little self-card advantage as Nova Grapplers. Because of the increased shield values, it is so unlikely for you to be able to kill. And on Blaster Blade itself, its crit on Vanguard is actually really valuable. I've seen the argument a lot that, oh, you can just no-pass that with a trigger. And that's the point. You're forcing your opponent to expend one of their most valuable shields early in the game. They don't have a choice. They are not taking that crit. They do not want to risk it. And when you have that set up, you also have a full 2 columns still coming at them. So you're probably still pressuring them with two or so damage. Yeah, it's really, really good. Blaster Blade's on Vanguard crit is super good for the early game of the deck. Now, in the case of the Soul Saver Dragon Turbo deck, the only way that Soul Saver Dragon is actually pressuring for game when you go for it immediately is if you if you rode Blaster Blade and used that pressure on turn 2. If you didn't do that, Soul Saver Dragon is going to be hitting against an opponent that has low damage. It's going to be able to take a bunch of those hits and just block one of them. And, like, you've just wasted your Soul Saver Dragon, and that takes a while to set up. Like, doing a double Soul Saver Dragon is not an easy feat, and it's going to require multiple turns of basically doing nothing. And that's not really something you can afford. It's much better to have King of Knights Alfred around, giving you shit tons of value, allowing you to hit for good numbers. Typically, like, you're typically seeing 23, 33, 23 as your columns. Though, honestly, I would not suggest putting force markers on Alfred itself. You're better off putting them on rears, because Alfred's 23 is already enough to force 2 cards out of your hand, which is because of perfect cards, that's the max you can hope to push out your opponent's hand. So, Alfred is really good. It helps you put on that pressure during the mid-game so that Soul Saver Dragon can actually be a threat. And Blaster Blade is the same thing. So, in comparison to the other VRs, if you're comparing Alfred to the other VRs, you are comparing apples to oranges. Alfred is just not the same sort of card. Alfred is a mid-game boss, and most of the mid-game bosses in V have been the triple rares. It's the only one that's a VR, and it does seem a bit bizarre to me that they made the mid-game boss the VR instead of the triple rare. Because in the cases of most of them, like Imperial Daughter and Waterfall, you don't actually run 4 of those cards. You run 3 of those cards, and you still have space for some rearguard focus cards. Because you don't want to ride these things first, and you need to 4 of your mid-game boss. Perfect Garger is the only one that you 4 of, because Excel, or at least Nova Grapplers, are much faster decks, and do not have the luxury of like going with the mid-game, late-game boss thing. They basically lose if they haven't killed by the end of their 5th turn. They will almost always live to their 5th turn, but if they don't kill by the end of it, they probably lose. That's how it typically goes. In comparison to Alfred early, this comparison is stupid. I can't be nice about this. If you're trying to say that Alfred early is better than King of Knights Alfred, or even comparable, you're bad. You're just bad. So, like, Alfred early, I already explained this, the damage choking weakness. And Alfred early is not repeatable and requires you to have a specific card in soul or in hand. And while this will happen frequently, that is still a requirement that King of Knights Alfred does not have. In addition, because of the power spread of King of Knights Alfred is much better, because you get to give the plus 10k to itself with its own ability, plus 5k to a Blaster Blade you put on rear, and then you put your force marker on the other rear guard. So it ends up with all of your columns having very good power values. And it's just a very good spread. It's just far and away far better than Alfred early, and the plus is much better quality. You're not weak to damage choking. Power spread is better. I already said all this. King of Knights Alfred is so much better than Alfred early. It's not even worth comparing the two. Just the fact that King of Knights Alfred is repeatable every turn instead of having to only being able to do it on ride just makes the comparison not work. And lastly, Soul Saver Dragon Turbo. I basically already explained this. So if you don't do the Blaster Blade turn 2 play to pressure your opponent, your turn 3 Soul Saver Dragon is not going to have the pressure. And you need Alfred to keep the pressure on your opponent so their damage is high enough for Soul Saver Dragon to be able to come down and maybe actually kill them. So yeah. I think that's all I really have to say. I hope I've explained to you why Alfred is a really good card, and honestly the perfect thing that Royals needed. There is a problem in Royals where everything does cost counterblasts, and they don't have any counterchargers. But I have found in my testing that in most games you do actually have enough counterblasts. It was actually worse with early, because basically you needed more counterblasts earlier. And now, because you're not using early, the counterblast issue is much less prevalent, because you can sparse out your King of Knight uses throughout the game, and it's just Yeah. Yeah. If anyone cares, I didn't put this at the front of the video or whatever, or in the middle of my arguments, because I think people will use this to dissect me, but I might as well point this out for anyone who does care. If you're wondering about my credentials as a competitive player, I have topped 7 buddy fight events, including 2 continentals. Every event that I participated in from 2014, every circuit that I participated in from 2014 to 2017, I have had at least 1 top 8 during. During 2015 fall, I won Toronto Regionals with Kaiserion, and that list ended up being net decked a lot and defined the Kaiserion list that was used throughout NA for that format. Much to my dismay, because Burchard got an important one of wrong, and people net decked the wrong card, and the wrong card was a card that I highly disagreed with being in the deck. Let's see, what else? I've been to 2 Continentals, top 8 the first one, which was in 2018, then the second one in 2015, I made 3rd place. Fun fact, the person I beat to get that 3rd place was the current Cardfight Vanguard World Champ. Oh, I know people. Yeah, he's a good guy. Talk to me more. I don't talk to people who aren't in my Discords enough. I'm very bad with that sort of thing. But yeah, as I said at the start of the video, I'm planning on doing much more Vanguard content. For those of you who know me from my Betty Fight stuff, don't worry. If you go over to the Buddy Spoiler channel, I'm planning on doing more Buddy Fight content over there in the future. I've been sparse on doing it there, but I'm going to be continuing to do it more. And the people who have been tuning in for my live streams of Trimont, I will be continuing those very soon. Trimont has been picking up lately. I like what they're doing with it a lot more than I did at launch. I think it's improved a lot. And I'm planning on trying to start Duel Links live streaming, because I'm really excited for this new box. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. If you want to see more of my thoughts on what my testing has told me about the new format, go follow me on Twitter at HunterSearch. I have been tweeting a lot about what my test results have been telling me every time I've done testing. And if you're interested in the sales figures for card games in Japan, we've recently been getting some monthly data on that, and I've been translating it so you can find that on my Twitter as my pinned tweet. And lastly, if you play Buddy Fight, if you aren't already aware of it, I am a part of BuddySpoiler.com, which is a premier news site for Buddy Fight. So go check us out if you aren't already. With that said, this is HunterSearch signing off.